Вот дерьмо! Гребите, гребите, гребите!
Беги, Сэм, бросай!
Deep in Louisiana, hidden in the heart of the jungle, an underground drug lab operates under strict security. But even the most secure places can't compare to federal agents who storm in, leaving chaos in their wake. Desperately trying to destroy all evidence, the workers dump a massive amount of methamphetamine directly onto the ground, setting the stage for disaster. They don't yet know that soon, all of it will spill into the river, creating a deadly chain of events. But this is just the backstory. Kyle, a young woman, lives and studies in Houston, where in lectures, they discuss apex predators. However, our protagonist is more interested in a message on her phone. Her friend suggests scattering her brother's ashes in Florida, in the place he loved the most. During the break, she meets this very friend, Alice, and it turns out they won't be driving to Florida in her car but instead will be traveling with a girl named Malika and a guy named Sam. However, Kyle finds Malika extremely irritating, but she has no choice. On the road, we learn from Alice that she had to sell her car because her mother started gambling again and got into $30,000 of debt. The group stops to rest at a motel, where a conflict arises between Alice and Kyle because Alice urges her to let go of her brother and start enjoying life. And for the first time, we see him, a cheerful young man whom she can now only see in her phone. Kyle also gets a glimpse of a happy couple, which adds even more weight to her emotional burden. In the morning, she is woken up by Malika's loudspeaker, urging everyone to get up and continue the journey. They stop at a gas station, where newspaper headlines are filled with news of endless alligator attacks. Additionally, Kyle notices an old man laughing at the news and warning her to beware of a huge alligator with a scar across its entire face. On the road, they discuss the business of alligator farming and the price of their eggs. Then, at one moment, Malika reveals her surprise. She has decided to fly to Florida by plane, fully aware that Kyle has a terrible fear of flying. At the hangar, they meet a still hungover pilot named Frank, who reacts very negatively when someone criticizes him for smoking near the plane. He tells the guy that he should respect smoking, otherwise, he can walk to Florida. At the last moment, the group considers canceling the flight, but Kyle urges them to act and not be afraid. However, on the plane, an argument breaks out because one of the tourists is talking on the phone. As a result, the pilots lose one engine, then the second, and are forced to make an emergency landing on water. At one point, Kyle loses consciousness, and when she wakes up, she realizes where they have ended up. On the shore, it becomes clear that the flight was illegal, meaning no rescue teams will come. They also have no map, no communication, and no food. From this moment, cold and hungry survival in the wild begins. 2 people have died, the second pilot and Zoe's husband. At one moment, Alice hears noises from the jungle and finds the very valuable alligator eggs. Frank checks the general supplies, but the survivors notice the second pilot. The man rushes toward him, only to be immediately devoured by an alligator. Kyle recalls her lessons and explains that there is a nest nearby. These creatures don't just attack randomly, they have a strong protective instinct. The group moves north, while an alligator discovers that only one egg remains in its nest. Kyle takes the lead and sets up a camp. Malika, of course, protests, but the group tells her to just shut up, with Frank adding that if things get critical, he will be ready to throw Malika to the alligators. At night, after everyone has fallen asleep, a cocky businessman steps away to relieve himself. Suddenly, he hears a phone ringing from the bushes and rushes toward it, unaware that he is stepping right into an alligator's jaws. He dies foolishly. In the morning, when the group finds his body, Frank tells them that there have been recent rumors about unusual alligator behavior. They've started attacking people not for food, but just to kill. One of them has even been nicknamed Christina, the one with a massive scar on her face. Alice spots a cabin deep in the forest, and the group heads straight there. Near the cabin, Kyle senses something is wrong and spots alligators. While she is explaining to the group how to move, Zoe is grabbed and dragged away. The group scatters, and the remaining survivors lock themselves inside, trying to fend off the alligator that has grabbed Maudie's leg. They barricade themselves inside and watch as the alligators fight each other. And Kyle has flashbacks of how she lost her brother. He tried to save a little girl during a robbery.
Jamie.
She wakes up in a cold sweat to the news that Sam has found a map. It shows a large structure, and if they cross a small river and walk 5 miles, they can reach it. Malika starts a fight, blaming Kyle for her brother's death. During the argument, her backpack falls into the water. She tells the group to stay in the cabin, but they vote to move forward. Kyle gives survival tips. If an alligator attacks, hit it on the nose and press its eyes with your fingers. If it drags you into the water, it will start twisting and breaking your bones to make you pass out before hiding you for later. When they reach the river, they realize their problem. Kyle and Frank suggest building a raft before sunset so they can float toward the structure. They all start working hard. When Alice asks Frank and Sam to gather more logs, she stumbles upon an alligator and kills it. In their hurry, they forget Kyle's backpack, and Sam goes back for it, barely escaping an alligator attack. Maudie, realizing how much of a burden she has become, says goodbye to her beloved and jumps into the water, sacrificing herself to give the group a chance to survive. Eventually, they reach the factory from the beginning of the movie. Malika once again shows her true colors, screaming across the factory, which enrages Frank. Inside, they find blood stains and shell casings. When Frank turns on the lights, he suggests splitting up to explore faster. He goes with Malika and Alice, while the others stay with Kyle. Kyle's group discovers the real cause of the alligator frenzy, methamphetamine. Suddenly, a survivor appears, begging for help. He's trapped, surrounded by alligators. Frank has something sinister in mind. He sends Alice away and then threatens Malika. He claims he's seen people like her in war, and in a fit of rage, he throws her over the railing. Realizing what he's done, he tries to help, but an alligator grabs his head and drags him down. The group manages to save Malika, and she apologizes to Kyle. The remaining survivors continue exploring and find a room full of resting alligators. They have no choice but to step over them to reach the control room. Just when almost everyone makes it, Sam accidentally knocks over some food scraps, falling and paying with his life. Jimmy drags a hysterical Malika into the room. Kyle manages to contact civilization and panic as she gives their location. The power goes out again, and Jimmy suggests leaving. Kyle finds a gun and a machete. But behind the door awaits something terrifying, Christina. For some reason, Alice, thinking she must return the stolen eggs, extends her hand toward the alligator, which promptly bites it off and throws her against the wall. Kyle, gathering all her courage, attacks Christina with the machete, stabbing her scarred eye. She then topples a barrel of chemicals and, saying goodbye to Christina, sets the alligator on fire. A helicopter arrives, rescuing them. Later, Kyle reaches the place she promised, scattering her brother's ashes and remembering his words, "Life is meant to be lived, not just survived." After the credits, Frank takes one last sip from his flask and mutters, "Daddy's home." Subscribe and like if you enjoyed the recap. We work hard to save you time. Thanks for watching. See you next time, hopefully not in an alligator's stomach.